Hi, this is Chris England. I'm known on Fire Emblem Heroes as Asaraf, and this is something I've been working on in my spare time as well as a spare thought that I've had. I've mentioned a couple of times in maybe one or two of my videos, and that's the idea of collabs in Fire Emblem Heroes. And one reason that I think that's something is because it might be more interesting for people who play other games to see, hey, they have this in Heroes. Hey, they have this costume. I want to give it a shot. And I think that that could probably propel Heroes in a little bit more of a more popular direction as opposed to where it might be now. I won't say that it's the most unpopular game, but I will say that it is a game that's lacking certain things, and one of the things I think of is collabs or crossovers. I do know that there are games that are currently doing no crossovers and yet are popular, but that's also because they come from a longer line of other games that may have been more interesting or more niche that became more popular as time went on. And the first one that I started with in terms of a banner crossover banner was Persona 5. I found four characters where they have both the same English voice actor and Japanese voice actor, and I designed custom units based around the costume, what the character can do, maybe certain stats on the character. But the main thing that I did was I got lucky and found some artwork that was used for a now defunct uh, app game or another game, but I did try and use as much outside of that as possible. So the first one I'm going to start with is Chrom, who shares both Matthew Mercer and Tomokazu Sugita with Yusuke Kitagawa, otherwise known as Fox. So Fox specifically, I did actually have a little bit of trouble trying to create this one. Not so much compared to some of the others, but this was a little bit harder in terms of the play style. I realized that both Chrom and Yusuke use swords in the game, but I wanted to give the red to someone a different unit, and that'll be, I believe, the next one upcoming. But for now, I'm focusing on the Persona 5 alt for Chrom, Foxtail Exalt. So he is a Blue Lance Infantry. His base stats, including stat bonuses, are 42 HP, 54 attack, 40 speed, 31 defense, and 34 resistance. So a little bit different from what Chrom normally has. He's normally a very defensive heavy unit with a little bit less of a focus on speed and a really low resistance, but a lot higher attack necessarily. And what I did give him is the Icy Brush Naginata in reference to Yusuke being a devout painter. So this is a might of 16 as all prefs go, and it also offers him an innate resistance +3, so his resistance is actually equal to his defense at 31 points. The skills are unit can counterattack at any range, disables foe skills that calculates damage using the lower of foe's defense or res or resistance, and foe's skills that change attack priority. So, and then if unit battles while within 2 spaces of an ally, grants speed and res +5 during combat, and after combat inflicts speed -7 on foes within 2 spaces of target. So basically what this is it's an innate distant counter, which a lot of relatively good weapons have had. It also comes with a mystic boost and a foe only hardy baron. We've seen this been given to legendary Lilina, but it's also her own skills. And then his own personal portion is just a flat speed and res buff during combat and a speed smoke 3. I also gave him for his special Frozen Landscape, which with the Glacies base at a cooldown cost of 4. Boost damage by 75% of units res, and after combat, inflicts status on foes within 2 spaces of target, preventing counterattacks through their next actions. So basically, it's creating a ice-filled landscape that not only does more damage to the opponent that he's facing, but also freezes anything around it in place. Once again, this is also based on his spell list, which mostly consists of ice spells, so the Bufu line, and also the idea that you're freezing everything in a beautiful landscape portrait. He also has one of the skills that I created for every single unit of the banner, the Tide skills. So Tide skills are specifically a upgraded version of the odd or even wave skills. So in this case, it's odd speed, even defense, which gives, at the start of odd number turns, grants speed +7 to unit and allies within 2 spaces. And then at start of even number turns, grants defense +7 to unit and allies within 2 spaces. So every single Tide skill will have this design. It's going to be a specific odd effect and a specific even effect. So in this case, on odd number turns, all your units within 2 spaces will gain a +7 to speed. And then the same thing will be for even number turns, only it'll hit defense. And this kind of blocks out the negative effect of the speed series, or the wave series, where each effect only works on one turn, specific turn, not the other. So for example, an odd wave will only work on odd turns. In this case, it's going to work 2 ways. One is on the odd turns, one's on the even turns, kind of like what the idea of the Tide. The Tide goes in, the Tide goes out. In addition to all of the skills, I gave him Rally Up Riz Plus, Swift Impact, and No Follow-Up. So he is aiming to be very speedy, very hard-hitting in terms of his resistance abilities. And the No Follow-Up is just to prevent him from having any problems with dealing with foes that don't allow him to hit twice. So next up, as a character that I mentioned that got the red color, is Panther as her code name. So I gave her the moniker Jotun's Panther. Giant Panther, I guess, is the way of looking at it. But this was actually the hardest part for me to kind of figure out, as trying to figure out how to input Panther into her the unit's name. So her stat lineup is a relatively modest 39 HP, a attack value of 58, so slightly higher than what Chrom offers, the same speed value at 40. Her defense is, of course, her dump stat at 21, and then her resistance is the higher one at 39. Now, of course, that's with all the buffs that she has normally. So her basic weapon is the Chain Blade Flare, a red tome with a might of 14, and like Chrom's weapon, it also offers a innate +3 to resistance. It also comes with the unit can counterattack at any range, so close counter effect. Disables foe skills that calculates damage using the lower of foe's defense or resistance, so Mystic Boost. And then once again, we're going to see the foe only Hardy Bearing, so any skills that change attack priority off of the foe also become disabled. And then her exclusive part of the skill is, if unit battles while within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack res +5 during combat and deals 10% of units res as damage. So even as a 44 resistance unit, it's going to deal an additional 4 damage. It's not going to deal too much extra damage, but it's just there to buff up the damage just a little bit, which also comes with the Frostburn special that I created for her. So as her base, the base is Iceberg with a cooldown cost of 3, so no change to the basics. Only a slight boost to the damage output, boost units damage by 60% of units res, and after combat inflicts frostbite on foes within 2 spaces of target until opponent's next turn. Or end of opponent's next turn. And then frostbite is the penalty that for this one, where it's just a flat unit takes 30% more damage. So this is similar to what Moose Spell offers with his C skill, where your units do a little bit more damage to what they're offering. And then her Tide skill, falling in with the every other Tide, is odd attack, even resistance. So odd number turns is attack +7, even number turns is resistance +7. I also gave her the Rally Up Speed Plus. I gave her Stillwater 4, the newest stat buffing / debuffing skill that we saw on Bridal Lilina. And then Null Sea Disrupt 3. So we're trying to make her hit hard, saying I don't mind taking any kind of no guaranteed follow-ups, but I really would prefer hitting as opposed to not hitting. And then just everything trying to buff her resistance. So noting by that, her resistance is not actually that high in terms of points, since if you minus the Stillwater 7 and then her preferred weapons 3, she actually starts with only 29 resistance. And then she starts out with 26 defense. So not the highest starting points in terms of defense. Her speed isn't touched, but she also loses a lot of attack because her Stillwater also gives her a 7 buff. So let's see, I believe that is 37, so a little bit less than what Chrom has. And then her HP is also less. But I did make her the res tank of the team. I did actually take a look at her stats, and from her persona, the 5 core stats, her magic was the highest, so I decided to make her the magical nuke / tank. The second hardest, not for whatever it was in terms of creating skills, but for some other reason, was Leo, the green unit of the banner. So he is a axe infantry. All of the units are infantry. I probably forgot to mention that one. So he once again shares Max Middleman and Mamoru Miyano with Ryuji Sakamoto or Skull. And the one thing that I had a real hard time with in terms of making his name was how to insert that skull into the naming, and I really couldn't think of anything that wasn't too long-winded, so I just went with Skull Mask of Nor, representing what Ryuji's codename is, or Skull. So in terms of stats, he does have a very high HP stat at 45, a monstrous 66 in attack, 28 speed, 36 defense, and a pretty pitiful resistance of 26. Now, I have been looking at Leo in general, and most of the versions of him, well, they suck in terms of what they're offered. I mean, I remember that one of the best versions was his Picnic version, and that's a free Grail unit. So his basic weapon is Dark Knight Mace, with, of course, the 16 might as a axe, any kind of range 1 preferred weapon, but he's also getting a +3 to attack, so basically 19 might. Once again, we're going to see distant counter, mystic boost, and the foe only hardy bearing. And then his exclusive skill is if unit battles while within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack defense +5, and unit makes a guaranteed follow-up. Now, we've noticed a lot of cases in recent creations that anything with a low speed cost that has a preferred weapon, usually somewhere in their kit is going to guarantee a follow-up or deny follow-ups from the opponent. And while we do have plenty of units that come with null follow, we're also showing more and more units that say, we don't want to deal with that. His special is Thunderburn Blow, or Thunderous Flare was the other naming that I came up with. And all it is, it's base bonfire with a cooldown cost of 3. All it's doing is boosting the damage of by 50% of units' combined attack and defense. So it's basically just taking bonfire, combining it with Dragon Fang. He's just this skill is in it of itself just aiming to be a big bash. It's trying to get around as much damage reduction as physically possible. Granted, it doesn't offer any kind of actual buff to that aside from just combining the damage, but hopefully that damage will do something to get through. And then his tied skill, as all the units have, is odd defense, even attack. So he covers what Chrom does on odd turns, on his odd turns with his even. And then he covers Anne's attack portion by being the even, to, or odd, or something like that. So odd number turns grants defense +7. Even number turns grants attack +7. And then for his other portion of his kit, he will come with Rally Up Defense Plus, Sturdy Impact, and then Lull Attack Defense 3. When I created this set, I really didn't think of what else I could put as the B skill. I thought it could also be another option to do a null skill. But of course, like I said, Sturdy Impact is denying follow-ups. Inez is the last unit as a colorless dagger infantry. So once again, he does share both his voice actors with a character from Persona 5, and this time it's actually the protagonist. He shares both Xander Mobus and Jun Fukuyama with Joker, or I guess they refer to him as, I believe, Akira Kurusu in the manga. I believe there might be cases where he's referred to as Ren Amamiya in either the anime or the game in and of itself. I don't personally remember that one as much, but for start, he does actually share his HP with Skull at 45. He has a not super low attack at 53. It's not the highest in terms of values, but he does have the highest speed stat at 45. He also has a defense of 26 and a resist of 24. So he's realistically the most frail in terms of generality, in terms of lowest, and has lower defense. And actually, he actually has the lowest resistance stat, but he's mainly there to be a attacker, not a defender. His weapon, Fallen Paradise, based out of the best dagger in the game from what I remember reading, the Fallen Paradise, has close counter, so can counterattack at any range, disables foes' skills that calculates damage using the lower of foes' resistance, defense, or resistance, so Mystic Boost, and of course the same foe-only Hardy Bearing. So that part, again, is in all of the weapons. His exclusive skill is a little bit more developed in terms of value. At the start of turn, if unit is within 2 spaces of an enemy, grants dodge to units and allies within 2 spaces of unit for the turn. So he's adding an additional skill bonus to them in that he's giving them dodge. Now, granted, I do realize that Ryuji is the only one who can't use dodge effectively, but it's also the fact that there are units that are slower than Ryuji, so it is possible that he could get some kind of dodge bonus, and he's not aiming to be a bulky, speedy unit. He's aiming to be a hard-hitting unit. And then he also has, if unit battles while within 2 spaces of an ally, grants attack speed +5 during combat. So no extra effect on that portion of the weapon. It's just a small buff during combat. And he's Inez is the only one as Royal Flush Joker or Royal Joker, referring to both Inez being a prince and, well, Joker. I gave him a slightly different assist skill as Ambush. And I based this off of Pivot, in addition to basing it off of the ambush mechanic in the Persona 5 game. So its unit moves to the opposite side of target enemy and then deals 25% of attack to target enemy. So the idea is you're ambushing them and ripping off their mask, dealing them damage. No debuffs at this point. And then also he has the last remaining set for Tide as odd resistance, even speed. So each unit has a Tide that will cover 2 others in terms of turn ratio. I also gave him Lethality as his special, as all good dagger units are now should be coming with. Attack speed solo 4 and lull attack speed 3. So once again, he's aiming to be as fast as possible, get more, not necessarily guaranteed follow-ups since he doesn't have the null follow-up effect, but he is aiming to be very fast to reduce damage as much as possible through his dodge. And also he's trying to aim to do more of a, I did actually create him as more of a support feeling unit as opposed to a specific attacking unit. He's not necessarily designed to be the most offensive unit, although he can provide that. He's more using based on that ambush skill. So that's it for the design. So oddly enough, I'd probably like to give a big thanks to, first off, the people who did voice them. All the voice actors did an amazing job. I also would like to thank the artist who I really couldn't find anywhere, as much as I didn't really try looking too much. I mainly was just trying to find the images of SAO Memory Defrag, which unfortunately did KO itself during the middle of last year. And I believe the only one that I was not able to use this with was Yusuke, as I could not find any kind of image. I found an image using Alice with his costume, but that wouldn't have worked as well since it's a male on male, not male to female cosplay. So that one I believe I got from SAO Sword Art Online Integral Factor, which is another one of the MMORPGs, I believe. So big thanks to them. I did try and alter the pictures a little bit in Paint 3D, but like I said, these are just designs that I thought of when I was working on the first idea. If anyone has any ideas of crossover banners that they would like to see, I definitely would be interested in hearing. I'm not really interested in doing crossovers from Fire Emblem to Fire Emblem, as that doesn't feel as much like a crossover, since we already have harmonized units that take 2 worlds and put them into 1 unit. I also see more value in trying to make these as units that have a specific connection to their character, kind of as like a voice actor to voice actor. I saw this person kind of give me this mask and this clothing, and he said, wear it, you'll feel different. And the character puts it on and has some quotes about feeling very different from what they normally feel. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll make another one of these eventually.